head into the Ringerverse to stay up to date with all things superheroes and nerd culture entertainment. Hosted by a rotating lineup of superfans at The Ringer, including Mallory Rubin and Van Lathan, shows will provide instant reactions to blockbuster releases, insightful backstories on canon, and mind-bending theories, as well as fresh takes on the latest news and rumors. Check out The Ringerverse on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Visible. Maybe you've already let your New Year's resolution slip. We all have, but you can still make a 2 year's resolution with Visible. Right now, you can get a one-line wireless plan from Visible for just $20 per month for 24 months. 24 months is basically 4 Bachelor seasons. That could be 4 engagements, 4 broken engagements, so many other couples we didn't see coming. It's really an eternity in Bachelor Nation. And that's unlimited 5G data powered by Verizon with no annual contracts. Switch now at Visible.com and use the code VISIBLE24. Don't miss out. Offer ends January 31st. New members only. Promotional rate with service on the Visible plan. For additional terms and network management practices, see Visible.com. This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. All right, it's official. I think I've discovered the ultimate coupling of all time. Like any good relationship, they really balance each other out. One is super sweet, and the other, well, they can be a little nutty sometimes. It is, of course, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, the perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolate. So perfect, some would call it true love. Find Reese's now at a store near you.
Welcome to Bachelor Party. I'm Juliet Littman. It's week 2. I'm joined by my pal, fellow podcaster, former Bachelor. I mean, you still are a podcaster. I don't know. It's Nick Viall. Hi, Nick.
So nice to be with you.
I think Juliet. I messed that up. I don't know where I was going.
Totally fine. For those of you who, I am still podcasting. It is
the Viall Files.
Yeah.
How's it? How are you enjoying that?
I'm enjoying it quite well. It's
great.
It's going great. It continues to keep growing, and hopefully I'll be doing it for a long time.
Well, today we're here to discuss The Bachelor, which you also discuss on the Viall Files, but not exclusively. It's also the whole Ask Nick situation, plenty of other topics.
Yes. Yeah, we do have Heather McDonald recapping this week with us. So if we don't cover everything you need to hear here, jump back on. But, we'll put our best foot forward on this podcast. So
we sure will.
Thank you for the plug.
You're welcome. Anything for you. What are your thoughts on the season so far before we get into the nitty gritty? We were 2 eps in, 2 eps with the weird faceless voiceover of next week on The Bachelor. And
what are you going to do about that? I mean,
well, why isn't it Tayshia or Caitlin?
Because they're not the hosts of the show, and I don't think they've really figured out what they're going to do.
They said that in the press last week that they're weighing their options, I guess. There was an article. I don't know if it was official sanction.
It was funny. When they announced, obviously, Kate and Tayshia, they were very clear to point out that they're there in a supportive role to Katie, right? And then I was actually at the MTV Awards.
The MTV Movie and TV Awards?
Yes. And I was just going, honestly, as a guest and as a friend of Nikki Glazer, who hosted the show. But Tayshia was there, presenting and accepting an award. And I don't know if it was an accident or whatever, or maybe like someone from ABC PR was like literally there, because they referred to Tayshia as host the first time. And then the second time, and keep this in mind, this is a taped event. It wasn't live. So there was a lot of pickups and things like that in the moment. And the second time they referred to Tayshia, they referred to her as a mentor. And even at this like random event, it was interesting, how like the label that they might be giving Caitlin and Tayshia. It's obviously clearly unclear, with things like In Paradise. And so that is my guess. I don't know why they haven't committed to any specific voiceover. They're just going with a generic, maybe it could be Chris Harrison voice type of thing.
I think it's super weird. I think like having Katie do it would have been more normal. I don't know. I just think that's like that to me. That is like the weirdest like band-aid they've put on the situation, because but I don't know. Maybe I'm just being really particular. You know how on screeners sometimes if you're watching a show, like there'll be a clear pickup and you're like, oh, okay, that's not going to be in the final cut. Like when it airs, it'll
Sure.
be like TJ
Yes.
Lavin's voice. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, I wonder what voice it's going to be. And then I found out that it's permanent.
Yeah, like, oh, this
via-
must be a pickup, but you're literally watching it on ABC. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, they forgot to fix that.
I mean,
Okay.
listen, as far as
You
what do
didn't-
I think?
Yeah. You didn't answer. I didn't let you answer. Carry on.
No, it's okay. I mean, whatever you think about Chris Harrison or the situation, like he was the host for how many years, and now he's not, so it's different, and different
Yeah.
takes some getting used to, right? I mean, listen, like if you're just like, if you hated Chris Harrison and you thought he should go, you're gonna just be like, this is amazing, and if you thought the whole Chris Harrison thing was just nonsense and wrong, and you're like, oh, I hate cancel culture, you're going to be very critical of the newness of it, right? Overall, I like the season. I think it's as good as any. I think, I didn't personally love the creative around how they incorporated Tayshia and Caitlyn night one, but I understand a lot of people did. It was just more
I
of a
didn't like
friend.
it either.
It seemed a little campy, whatever, but like whatever. They didn't hurt the show. It was totally fine. As far as the Katie, she's honest. She clearly is going to speak up when something's on her mind or she's feeling something. I think that's always great. And the guys, honestly, so far, I like what I see in terms of the different personalities and et cetera, et cetera. And yeah,
So you're digging it.
I teared up twice this episode.
What were the two times?
Mike and
Yes.
and then obviously Greg's conversation with Katie. I mean, that was like it was done in a very emotional way. Mike's, I don't know. I'm curious about what your thoughts are, but
All right. Well, let's set it up. Let's get into it.
okay.
First
Go
first
ahead.
date.
Yeah.
First, I'm hosting, Nick. This
Yeah,
is
sorry.
your
I'm sorry.
pod.
I just got done.
I know how it goes. It's very hard to not host when you're used to it. You're just always trying to like weave the conversation. Okay. Group date was the first date of the episode, and it was a sex positivity date, which I take some issue with. It was hosted by Heather McDonald, who is a sex guru, and podcast host herself. Is that correct?
I mean, she's open about sex. Interesting. I don't know if you know this about Heather, is that she lost her virginity at 27. I know this because she wrote a whole book about it. And as a guest on her podcast way back when, I listened to her book. And so she had an interesting perspective, which honestly the producers didn't know about. But the fact that she was someone who lost her virginity in her mid 20s, I thought was an interesting kind of wrinkle about the whole thing.
Yeah, because one of the central parts of this date was that Mike, who is 31, former baseball player, believes he lives in Southern California now. He is a virgin, and because he wants to wait until he's married to have sex. And the date included like a quiz kind of at the beginning with Heather asking a bunch of questions. And including what's your favorite sex position and when's the last time you had sex. And for both of those, Mike just put a question mark on the whiteboard. And there were some other questions along the way. We'll get into that. And then they had to do a presentation to show if they'd be the best lover or not for Katie. What'd you think about this date as a concept?
Fun, it's an opportunity. I always watch it differently. There's always a purpose, a long game of what they're hoping to accomplish. But listen, they're limited in the dates that they have. So they bring Heather, she's a comedian. She talks about sex a lot on her podcast and her stand up. And it's always usually fun and playful to get the guys to say something goofy or it silly, and then maybe I thought it was good. Yeah.
One of the questions was, what is the biggest female sex organ? And many of them said vagina. And I just want to say vagina's not an organ.
Let's talk about that for a second. I actually failed to discuss this on the podcast, but I did. I made a TikTok on
Obviously,
it.
the answer is brain. That's one of those things.
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
and also,
everyone knows that.
I want to point out that if you want to defend these guys for these boneheaded responses, it's hard to do when you realize these are not rapid. Nothing happens rapid fire in this world. They had plenty of time to think about it, discuss their answer, and they still they're I could get how in a panic and a rush decision, you're I don't know, vagina, right? But if you give someone a good 60 seconds to think about that, it's like, oh, okay, brain.
Yeah. It's also like definitely the kind of fact that like pops up in a lot of like teen movies too. Like it's just
Yeah.
that was the dumbest one.
Oh, but hold on. On that point, on that particular question, I have some screenshots. Courtesy of my lovely assistants. And by lovely, I mean professionally as a human beings. So what's his name? Justin wrote tongue, right? Also dumb, but like whatever. And while vagina's stupid, like it's just like, all right, fine. And then you can't see it, but I have the screenshot of Courtney who wrote the, and then whatever after was redacted by ABC. And then following that, they have especially if she's on steroids. Now, keep in mind.
Is that clitoris? That's got to be clitoris, right?
Maybe, but like vagina apparently is appropriate for ABC. So it's like whatever he wrote.
What did Courtney write?
I want to know. Like whatever he wrote is worse than vagina, and apparently steroids will make this shit go nuts.
I gotta Google that. I don't know.
So
we got to get Courtney with a Q on the line to find out.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, in all fairness, like I think people just don't appreciate how fucking nervous these guys are right now. It's the day after like night one. They still don't know what the fuck's going on. And you know, they're getting asked sex questions and they're trying to be goofy and funny. And I kind of sweep it all under the rug. It's
uncomfortable. It's even if it's not uncomfortable, it's like awkward. Everyone's like, what's my, how do I handle this situation? One of the questions was how many erogenous zones do women have? And that was the one question they showed, but they didn't show the answer to, which I just want to say I wouldn't have known the answer, but I looked it up. It's 31.
Thank you. I did not know as well. I don't even know what an erogenous zone is. Do you?
It's like where it can be pleasured.
Oh, okay. Great.
Yeah. Well,
31.
We're all learning. Yeah, exactly.
31.
There's no way any of them got that right. They probably, they also, one of them was like, what does erogenous mean? So, there's no, and again, like this is, that is not the same as writing, not getting brain. Anyway, let's get back to Mike. So Mike with his question marks. Mike's a virgin. I guess, I wonder if the guys had known already. My perspective is they didn't because they didn't have any bites of people talking about it, and no one was like looking at him like,
they definitely didn't know. The producers knew.
Yeah, of course, the producers knew. But the guys,
I would. It's too early. I mean, it's funny when we were watching the season, the season preview last week. You're always like, oh, who's your top four going to be? And Mike wasn't in my top four, but I was like, hey, Mike, but Mike's not my top four, but I definitely could be wrong because he's crying about sex. And we know already they basically said he's a virgin in the season trailer. So like he must go far enough to like have things get serious that he's crying about sex. Turns out it's episode 2.
Episode 2. And so I just felt really bad for him. He was crying and I'm sure he felt really uncomfortable. And I felt sad for him, but then it ended up okay because he gave this really nice presentation explaining what sex means to him, and it really touched Katie. And I was like really happy for him. It was like a roller coaster of emotion with Mike.
100%. I think this is a perfect example. It's a Bachelor and life kind of lesson that like how you feel in the moment, like let things marinate. You might see it differently, and in Bachelor world. That happens often, right? Like,
very quickly.
But like I was literally watching it last night and both Nally and I were like, this is fucking weird. And why are they putting this guy in this situation this early?
Yeah.
Like why? It seems uncomfortable. And then he gave his speech. And I gotta say, like, we've heard a lot of virgin conversations. I get there's a lot of virgins out there in their late to mid 20s. There's always a lot of different reasons, right? When it's on a TV show, I have a tendency of kind of rolling my eyes of like, how performative is this, et cetera, et cetera. And I got to say,
in this case, that's because we've been through 2 storylines where it's been totally exploited by the show.
Yes. right? I'm not judging that person.
Ashley and Colton. No,
Yeah.
I'm not judging them either. I'm judging the show for exploiting it and making it like a big thing.
But even in like just people with relationships and dating, like what I've learned by having, when people call in, it's just like a lot of people don't even know why they are a virgin. Like Ashley I was kind of like, I just waited this long. Heather McDonald kind of acknowledges that it kind of turned into that. I might have started because she's Catholic or whatever. So it's weird because but when I heard Mike and I was kind of like, okay, here we go. Like he loves God. Okay. And I get it. That was the best reason and explanation for keeping your virginity than I've ever heard. And I honestly, I'm so thankful that aired in the way that it did. For anyone who's saving themselves for whatever reason, do it like Mike, because it wasn't out of shame or guilt or getting credit or being holier than thou or whatever the reason. It was like, listen, it's real simple. Like, it means a lot to me, and I have this idea of this girl, this woman, and I want to make her my wife, and I'm going to wait because whenever she is, I want to say, I waited for you. I didn't even know who you were. And that's fucking romantic. And I don't subscribe to it. I'm not going to do it. It's not for me. But it was just, it was very clear why he was doing it. His intentions were clear and they were pure, and it was super fucking romantic. And it was the best explanation I've ever heard for keeping your virginity.
Yeah. And not even that you necessarily need to have a good explanation, but I do think he did a good job of like destigmatizing it on this show, and where it has obviously been stigmatized.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You don't. But if you're going to go on a national television dating show, like clearly you're open to talking about it, or you're going like
it had to have come up in his interview process, because otherwise he didn't necessarily have to be on this group date. He didn't have to be like the focal point of this today.
I just like, how could you, again, like you could say, oh, I'm saving myself because of God. And people would be like, well, like I'm religious and I don't, you know what I'm saying? This was such a clear thing. Like how can you, that's his prerogative. It was just like the healthiest point of view, Yeah,
I guess. I mean, I think it puts a lot of pressure on his future wife and on his future relationships.
I understand. And again, it's not for everyone.
I worry about that. But yeah, I worry about that. But that's, his choice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not for me.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
I think the affirmation that Katie showed him was also like such a sweet, like, I don't want to call it a payoff. I don't want to like denigrate it that way, but that's the word I was thinking of. It just was really nice to see that touch her, no pun intended, when her whole thing is like, she's so sex positive. And I was glad that actually happened, because I feel like the meaning of sex positivity has kind of been like turned into horniness on this show, where it actually just means like open-mindedness about sex.
I totally agree. People like confuse sex positive with casual sex, and that's not the case. Like, also people confuse sex positive with like not just kind of still respecting the fact that like sex, regardless if you're positive about it, is a powerful thing, and it's just more like not shaming people because they have sex, right?
Or have it in the case of Mike,
or not have it. You're just like, sex is a good thing. You're not going to burn in hell, basically. But yeah, and a little behind the scenes that I heard from Heather is that, and it was pretty clear from watching the show that, all the guys on the date and the guys showed up were just really just supportive of him. And it sounded like it was a really big moment in Mike's life in terms of like being afraid of the judgment and shame, and having people truly, and as you pointed out, in a sex positive way, like praise him for his virtues or his belief systems, whether you agree with it or not. And like, we all felt bad for him, but this guy was given such a gift by this experience of the show that he might never get. And I think that's interesting. Also, I think it's pretty clear Mike's going home in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's it. We got the biggest Mike bite. We got the Mike from the trailer in episode 2, so he's got like 1 or 2 weeks to go. I mean, Mike, we wish you the best of luck in the future.
And while Katie is very grateful for his honesty, and she's going to give him like one of those like meaningless awards, like not a rose, but like you win today.
Yeah.
I don't think Mike's her guy.
Yeah, he didn't even get a rose, if I recall.
Yeah, no.
It's
always like, hey, you win. Literally nothing.
I don't even think he won extra time. Like, he just won.
No,
like that.
He just won.
He just got like some accolades.
Yeah, but
Okay,
still,
I'm back to feeling bad for Mike. Poor Mike.
He's still no. I mean, listen, like in all,
it seems positive. I
like
hope
the
he's doing
show
well.
is obviously, this and this, and was it produced? Listen, like I think it's fascinating that guy is going to remember that moment and feel validated about his decisions, and it's something you can take away from him.
Yeah, Mike, we wish you the best. Let's move on.
Okay.
Any other notes from this date? I don't think I had any other ones.
No, yeah, whatever. I don't think
It was
anything we
good.
learned.
Mike was really the star.
Yeah.
Although the puppet show, I was confused about the X-rated puppet show that was going on there.
Yeah. I mean, again, like little. Apparently, I was curious. One question I wanted to ask Heather was Carl as annoying as they made him seem, or was he not? And it was just like he got a bad soundbite or soundtrack. I guess it was 10 times worse, because what made it bad is that he went for like 30 minutes when everyone else went for 5, and was just like, he was every bit the motivational speaker he thought he was, but isn't, kind of thing.
Hard pass on Carl.
Yeah.
A couple things I did like. Justin, don't know if you noticed, he had a can of whipped cream in his shirt pocket.
Did not notice that.
Loved that. It's just like cool Varsity Blues reference if he's even seen that movie. He's like 26, so I'm not sure he's familiar with.
I feel like
the
it's a
great
classic,
work.
No?
I mean, the whipped cream bikini certainly is. That's what I was thinking of. I don't know what he did with that, but I noticed it was in his pocket, and I thought it was very funny. Connor B, cat guy, with the song.
Yeah, I mean,
So Connor B carrying around his instruments. Obviously he didn't necessarily bring those with him, but I was just like, did they just provide those for Connor B? I thought it was really funny that he had, for some reason, that him carrying them really made me laugh.
Probably. Apparently he is something I learned when I was there, that he is, in addition to being a teacher, he is a piano bar musician, which that requires a significant amount of talent.
Especially in Nashville.
Musically, and like the gift of writing songs on the fly. I mean, yeah, it was a great song. It was performed well.
He crushed it, yeah.
And whatever he's doing, it doesn't reek of the performativeness that was Jed.
Right. Well, he's owning up to it. He's
leading with his strengths. I mean, he's in a world with super tall, alpha, handsome guys. Like Connor is a shorter, handsome in his own right, but more of a nerdy, and he is charming the pants off of Katie. And it's because he's playing to his strengths while not being insecure about the qualities he doesn't have.
We forgot to mention that Carl used the word suffocate instead of suffocate.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Suffocate.
Suffocate.
I really enjoyed some of the guys' commentary for him. He's like, it's all right, man. You just combined 2 words that you didn't really fully understand.
Also, I don't quite remember who it was, but one guy did the dick in the box from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, it was the same guy who said he's the box guy, and he also
James.
And he also said he hopes that he's not known as only the box guy, only to come out with the dick in his box.
I thought it was funny. Shout out to the producers for having that handy. Obviously all the props were provided, so good stuff.
I mean, it's early on. It's good, clean fun. I mean, it was a heavy episode, but a lot of it has to do with we need to get to know Katie.
Yeah, totally. Just last note on Connor B, cat guy. Aggressive kisser. A lot of head movement in his kissing. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did notice that. And I'm wondering, and again, totally fine if it is, if this is a Katie thing. Because
yes, I noticed she kind of does that too.
There's a lot of heavy makeouts, and the only constant is Katie. And and again, that's awesome. But these are hard. These are hard makeouts.
It's true. It's a lot of motion. Yeah, I noticed that myself.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
It's great.
1-on-1. Greg. And they were matching. I love that they were matching. That had to have been coincidental, right?
Well, it's
so
cool.
here's what I'm thinking. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Okay.
Katie's outfit, not a coincidence. They plan all of Katie's outfits. She's got a stylist. His name's Carrie. Greg has to bring his own clothes, and he has to dress himself. Perhaps they could suggest a style to him, but is any producer being like, Greg, layer your white hoodie underneath your flannel shirt?
There's always a the outfits are not picked out like date to date. Katie can wear whatever she wants. She gets to pick out all her outfits. They have extra outfits, and then it's a matter of here's what today's date is. Here's the kind of things that you should wear. Katie will pick it out. Then there's a conversation between Katie's producer and the producer who's going to be handling the person on the date. And they're like, what's our guy planning on wearing today? They'll always ask the guy because he has less, like Katie's got a fucking army of clothes, right?
He
She's
only
got
has
options.
what he brought with him.
He's got finite. So they'll ask him and then they'll be like, great. And so there's some coordination that goes into it. I love a good matchup. I mean,
I thought they both look great. So I was like, cool. You both look really good in your hiking boots and your flannel and your hoodies. It was a great cold weather outfit.
I think
for
it's
both of them. Totally
fun. Yeah.
It was straight J. Crew catalog. I thought they looked great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
My favorite part of the date, because I'm a jerk, was when Katie was like, look at this beautiful scenery. And it was just like a really ugly, not ugly, but like these like dark winter tones in New Mexico. I thought it was really funny.
I was, totally. I was there that day, like quarantining, and it snowed that morning. It was, that was an ugly day. It was windy and brutal. And I remember waking up being like,
How cold was it?
It was, you know, I mean, I've never been to New Mexico before, but I showed up, it was 70 and sunny, and the next morning there was snow on the ground. So my God. And that day was one of those, like, you know, when it's like, you know, there's like freezing cold weather that people, if you're familiar with like the Midwest or the Northeast, and it's just cold, but then there's like the days where it's like 30, it's above freezing, but it's super windy.
Yeah,
and it's just
damp
and dreary. And it's just like, it's almost, you'd rather it to be 20 and sunny.
Yeah, totally. At least get some sun.
And it was like that. So it was a very kind of not fun. I remember thinking, whoever's on a date today, like that sucks for them. But turned out to be fine. And I mean, I don't know about you, like, and I we can get into the whys, but I was shocked when Greg got the first one-on-one.
So I think you and I had the same prediction. I think we both felt that for some reason it seemed more evident than ever that like it's clear Greg wins. Like I'm just like Greg wins. Like there's no doubt in my mind from episode 1.
Yes,
I don't know any spoilers, but that's just how it seemed.
That's my prediction. I was just kind of blown away, even for given that prediction. I was surprised because then I'm immediately like, well, why? You know, like why? It turns out like this episode was all about Katie and us making sure we get to know Katie because she wasn't a top 4 finalist. We didn't really get to know her story. I mean, she didn't have she got like, she got sent home on a one-on-one or something, but either way, there was no like, who is Katie? Where's her background, et cetera,
there was
a
third on her one-on-one. It was her, Matt, and Tyler. So,
yeah.
And the masseuse.
Exactly, right? So this episode was us getting to know Katie. So, you know, I think it was just...
Yeah, we didn't know that her father had passed away. We didn't know.
So like, Greg's
and she was quite young for it, by the way. It was like almost 10 years ago.
So at the first impression rose is it's in my experience and talking to my peers, it's 100% the choice of the leads. There's almost zero influence of the producers.
And many of the women end up with their first impression rose.
Correct.
Guys, because women just know.
And so, I mean, like if I was going to pick my favorite night 1, I would have given it Vanessa. I choose to use it a different way.
Who'd you give it to? Oh, Rachel. Right?
Rachel, yeah.
Our girl, our colleague.
So it was interesting because at the risk of, I once heard from a producer that they usually find their villains either from first impression rose or the first date because that person gets early validation.
A lot of attention.
And it's not so much that there's anything wrong with them and even how they handle that attention, but this eyes get sucked to that guy. And then they might just force the issue. But clearly, I don't think Greg's going to be a villain. I don't think they want him to be a villain. I think they'll go out of their way to like keep Greg out of the fray, but they needed Greg on this date so we can learn about
Katie story.
Get this Katie story. And it was just kind of fascinating to see.
I just want to say I'd love to go on a fishing first date. I thought that seemed really fun. Seemed like one of the better dates there are. Also, didn't require either of them to be too cold. I think it seemed like I was like happy they could layer for this cold weather. And I thought he seemed like a nice guy. He seems like the type of person you would marry. He seems like totally normal, plain, regular guy.
I learned this from you. He's extraordinarily obtainable hot.
Yeah, exactly.
And I loved his joke night one where he was just like, just so you know, it's not real gold. Like it's a really, and his delivery, he's got a good deadpan. In this episode was a perfect example. Greg is just like, I don't know, like this is nuts, and like I'll go along with it, and I feel a connection because, like, you know, anyone on a first date, when they start saying, wow, like I didn't expect this, I believe. I've been there. Like you're on one of these dates and it is a crazy thing. But then you have like the Thomases and the Aarons of the world who are like, it's all bullshit, you know? Like they sit down and like, I just want you to know, like, this is crazy. Isn't this crazy? Almost crazy. I love
think
you.
It's Aaron. It might be Thomas, but I'm pretty sure it's Aaron who insists on hugging Katie first every time.
No, that's
it's
Thomas.
Just like, Thomas, excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm just like, Thomas, we get it. You're trying to like, you know, mark your territory. I'm like, we see what you're doing and it's not cute.
No. And so like, yeah, Thomas and Aaron, and there's a bunch of guys who are like saying what they think they should say and saying what they think, like what Katie wants to hear. And Greg is not doing that. Greg is, no, it's easy because he's getting validated, but I still think he would be.
He's not a showman, that Greg. Let me just say. Question for you. How tall is Katie?
She's short.
Okay, like
so I'm gonna guess 5'3", 6'2".
Okay, so Greg seems like he's probably about your height. He's like a foot taller than her.
You think so? I mean, it's hard to tell. People didn't never think I'm 6'2" while watching the show. Because it's funny. I only said it because if you made me guess without putting much to thought, I would guess like 6. Although I
would have gone with like 5'10", 5'11", but he seemed taller and broader than I was expecting.
That might be true.
Not to be such a typical girl, but I was like, oh, cute.
They don't cast
tall and broad.
I mean, you must be special if you're under 6 foot and they cast you on that show. They specifically look for tall guys.
That was the fucking weirdest thing about Luke Parker on Caitlyn and Jed on Hannah's season. Both of them. I mean, again, tall.
They'll take exceptions to the rule, and the date I was on, like Thomas is like 6'5". Aaron's like 6. They're
Thomas
huge.
and Aaron are both
huge.
Yeah,
huge
and very attractive. Also, Justin, he seems pretty big too.
Also, big guy. Yeah,
I'm very into Justin.
All those guys are like 6'4".
Cool.
Yeah. I didn't get to know him.
Justin
se.
could dunk
Seemed like
and
nice.
he paints, so I'm just like, cool, man. But
not that I want to knock. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but like it was a real cheesy on day one where he's like, you know, and that space is like for the persons who I'm going to fall in love.
Sure.
I was like, all right, bro.
It was super cheesy, but you know, just based on the limited info I have, I'm interested. It's just all I'm going to say.
Like I liked, again, that's where like the difference between Greg and Justin is. Justin decided to be earnest about that space and be like, it's just for the person whose heart I'm going to fill. And Greg was like, hey, just so you know, it's not real gold. It's noodles. Like that, like, to me, it was like, I'm more of a Greg guy, you know, but.
Yeah, Greg seems fine. I just feel like Greg seems like you just meet him at the bar. You just seem, and I think is a good match for Katie. So I really feel certain he wins. What I liked about him the most was that he was encouraging her to like tell him the deep stuff and was like, while he was getting the validation of the first rose and the first date, he was like giving it back when she was clearly upset. However, I did notice when she was like holding back tears when they were like sitting on the log or whatever and telling him about her dad, he didn't touch her, didn't give her a hug, didn't hold her hand, didn't put his arm around her. It's just like, dude, just give her a hug. Yeah. She's struggling.
I did not pick up on that.
And I was just like, she just give her some physical touch.
I think that's valid to consider. It's also so early. I always think back about my first date with Andy, and crying. Like on my first date with Andy, and I had the third one-on-one. I mean, it still felt like I was on a date with a celebrity. It was like it wasn't until after that I was like, okay, I see her as a human being now, like a person, like, you know what I'm saying? It's a really bizarre. She's like, hey, can I put my hand on your, should I? I don't know. Like,
I think if I were on this show, which obviously I would never be, I would request to like bring a flask, or I'd be like, can we work a flask into the date so we can like have some awkward sips together? Because I felt like there was a few times where they should have had like an awkward sip of whiskey or something to warm up.
That's a good idea. I mean, I don't know if it'll work with this new true 2-drink minimum or 2-drink max per hour, but I like the idea.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a nice date. So you were really touched by Greg's story about his father, huh?
Touched. I mean, I don't know. Like, I admit that it got me. Like, I was like, "Fuck!" It pulled on the heartstrings. Like, maybe it was just the way they put it together. Props to the post team, but I mean, two people crying about the death of their father. I can't relate. I've been lucky to have healthy parents, and it was clearly a touching moment. I guess
it was.
Yeah.
I'm glad they were able to have the conversation. Anyway.
This episode is brought to you by Visible. Maybe you've already let your New Year's resolution slip. We all have, but you can still make a 2 year's resolution with Visible. Right now, you can get a one-line wireless plan from Visible for just $20 per month for 24 months. 24 months is basically 4 Bachelor seasons. That could be 4 engagements, 4 broken engagements, so many other couples we didn't see coming. It's really an eternity in Bachelor Nation. And that's unlimited 5G data powered by Verizon with no annual contracts. Switch now at Visible.com and use the code VISIBLE24. Don't miss out. Offer ends January 31st. New members only. Promotional rate with service on the Visible plan. For additional terms and network management practices, see Visible.com. This episode is brought to you by eBay Authenticity Guarantee. eBay knows that when it comes to jewelry, authenticity is the real gem. When you see the blue check mark that says Authenticity Guarantee, it means your next piece will be carefully inspired by jewelry experts and will always be worth its weight in gold. Whether you're looking to make a statement or build the perfect everyday look, eBay is making sure you get the real deal. With eBay Authenticity Guarantee, you can trust that jaw-dropping piece will always arrive jaw-droppingly real. Ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit ebay.com for terms.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. You might say all kinds of stuff when things go wrong, but these are the words you really need to remember. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They've got options to fit your unique insurance needs, meaning you can talk to your agent to choose the coverage you need. Have coverage options to protect the things you value most. File a claim right on the State Farm mobile app and even reach a real person when you need to talk to someone. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All right, next. Wrestling date. Next group date. I just hate a wrestling date. It's just like awkward. I don't know. Even more so like out in the field. I feel like it's actually better when they do like the like lingerie pillow fight in the bar. I feel like this was like even more awkward for some reason. I don't know. I didn't care for it.
I didn't have that much of a reaction to it. I mean, it was more like, what are you going to do? You know, like they're so limited out there.
I know. Do you think this was more limiting than,
yes.
than Palm Springs?
Palm Springs, I don't know. But like, props again, like the art department. Good job, guys, because that place is not particularly pretty. It's in the middle of fucking nowhere. Certainly beautiful sunrises and sunsets and like
hiking.
There's something like artistic about it, but like after a couple days, you're just like, this is a lot of open fucking space. And
I wouldn't like it.
There's just not much there, you know, and so they're just very limited, you know.
They should have gone horseback riding. Maybe they will in the future.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. But like again, like. You know, they're just trying to save it all.
It's kind of funny how on how Matt and Katie seasons, like the cars that Matt and Katie arrive in for these dates, like take such a big focus because there's like not a lot else to like change it up and like make it a different like setting.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry.
When Katie was driving off road in the pickup truck, I was like, I don't know if the truck can handle that. I was nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was like it wasn't meant for that.
Off-roading with Greg. What were you going to say?
When Tayshia and Caitlin woke up with the pots and pans, I have to go back and watch to confirm. But there was a point where I'm pretty, and it was definitely Greg, where he literally kind of snapped and said, "All right, that's enough." Like he kind of yelled at Caitlin and Tayshia, and I was like, okay, maybe Greg has maybe there is a dark side to Greg that
not a morning person.
Yeah, I mean, like you're on a show. I get it's annoying, but like, damn, you snapped at Tayshia and Caitlin, and like you had the courage to do that, and they aired it. I don't know. It was an interesting. I'm literally just remembering this now, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I wouldn't like to be woken up like that either, but classic Bachelor move right there. We've seen that before.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Happens all the time. Did it have to be early in the morning? I don't know. At least they get to be in hotel rooms. Would you have rather been in a hotel room or in the house?
Oh, the house.
Really?
Sure.
Why?
Well, again, I'm just like, I remember going like in New Mexico. I just remember kind of processing this, like where, again, you had to sit there in quarantine for 4 days, right? So you're just kind of sitting there.
Which is like an arbitrary number, by the way, but whatever. So you weren't vaxxed yet, huh?
I was not vaxxed yet. And I still think they're doing it, but whatever.
Yeah, apparently people are quarantining right now for Paradise.
So, but what was I gonna say? What were we talking about?
If you'd rather been in the house or
because I just kind of remember being like, man, if this were me showing up to the Bachelorette for the first time ever, like, ugh, like I went on, and I think most people did when I was there. It was the travel more than anything,
right?
That I was like, I don't know, like I don't know if this TV thing, blah blah blah, but like I've never been to Europe or Asia and like I don't know, that seems like that for me, and I think a lot of the guys was like, where do we might get the travel, and even the Bachelor Mansion is like, it's not really much of anything. It was still like a thing. You're like, oh fuck, here's the Bachelor Mansion. And you're like, you're just in some random hotel. So just the experience. I felt bad for these guys being like, they have this whole, and I'm sure it'll still be a bonding experience, but they're definitely missing out. It and apparently like Nemacolin in Pennsylvania was pretty dope.
Yeah, it seems better. I actually just watched the episode of Real Housewives of Potomac where they go there, so did seem better. Got to see it in all its glory. I think if I were on the show, one of these guys, I would go absolutely insane only interacting with this group of people for X amount of time, including production crew or whatever. But like, it's so much isolation, and like after a year of isolation, I feel like I would have just lost my mind. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I had an actual thought of being like, oh god, it would suck to be. Can't wait till like I was counting the food's it was these people sacrificed to give us good TV.
Well, thanks to them. And also it's different than last year when they did Claire and Tayshia's season, because I feel like that was so much earlier in the pandemic, where like going to a location where you were like, able to forget about COVID, you could like not wear a mask, not worry, probably was such a relief. Whereas like this happened in March where people were kind of like figuring things out a little bit more.
Totally different.
Yeah. It just seemed like that. It's just really rough. The main thrust of the wrestling date was that Aaron and Cody have a beef with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the editing where there's like,
we have no idea what happened.
There's clearly this tension here, and I'm like, I'm sure there is, and I'm not there, and maybe that's why the music they're playing is going to give us a sense. But it looked like all the other matches.
Yeah, and like, okay, they didn't look at each other beforehand. Big deal.
Cody was like smiling through the whole time, like I know, literally.
He seemed totally fine. So, and then ultimately, she sends Cody home because she can't trust him. There's no trust there.
Are you team Cody or team Aaron in this situation?
I'm in team neither. I think Aaron seems like kind of immature, but I think Cody obviously didn't defend himself very well. If there had been a good explanation, he probably could have given it. But moreover,
people always say that, like, what would you do if you go into this world, you just get there, you have all these fears. I'm like, God, I don't want to look bad. I don't know this and that. And out of the gate, some guy who's like from your town, a small town like San Diego's a small city, right? Like it's not very big. And if you're part of the social nightlife, which it sounds like these two guys are, like it's very much like high school. And some guy shows you up and throws you on the bus and makes an accusation that like, quite frankly, you probably can't defend. Like I'm certain it had to do with the girl Cody dated that knew Aaron, and she's mad at Cody. And it like, what is he supposed to say? Maybe he's a piece of shit. I don't know. But like, my guess is, people are going to mistake his calmness and the lack of being able to defend himself as a valid reason to think he's guilty. And honestly, like, it could easily be a situation where he didn't know what to say. He like, there's probably nothing to say, and he just hoped that Katie decided to believe him over Aaron. And when she said, I believe Aaron over him, he was like, okay, I'm just gonna like, you know what I'm not gonna be? I'm not gonna be fucking Yusuf. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna like, I'm gonna be respectful.
Men like that. Yeah. Agreed.
And he's just gonna like go. And I think he just got a bad fucking deal.
Yeah, I mean, we have no idea what happened. That's the thing. And then later on in the episode, Carl like tells Katie other people might not be there for the right reason. We have no idea what he's talking about. No one seems to know. I was like, it was very hard for me to continue paying attention when these two like fights were happening, because I was like, we don't know what's happened here. It's like just sort of like a cloud of mystery over like the right reasons. They said the right reasons so many times. I didn't care for it, and we didn't get to hear about Cody being a zipper salesman, and now he's gone. How can we not talk about his job? I have so many questions for Cody.
What is it? I totally.
Like, what does that mean? Like, how did he get into this? What's his day like? I am dying to know, and now we never will. So I'm kind of pissed. I mean, zipper sales manager, like what kind of zippers? Like waterproof ones for my jeans? Like what? I just like, I'd love to know.
I know. Is he selling wholesale? Is it like door to door? Like there are a lot of questions that we definitely didn't get answered. I do want to just point out that again, who knows, right? I always want to reserve critiquing these men's characters outside of the show because context is often missed. If things played out for the most part the way we saw it, and that is Carl going up to Katie and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna something. This is gonna scare the shit out of you. I'm not gonna give you any details. I'm not gonna give you any facts. I'm just going to tell you and ask you to trust me." That is shit that people do in the real world. That is incredibly manipulative and incredibly toxic. And it's a good takeaway of like, if you're dating someone or no one who does that, it's fucked up. You should run.
Carl deserved to go home more than Cody. Carl sucks.
100%. But like,
it's like Carl's snitches get stitches, and like, you better give me some proof if you're doing this. At least Katie named names when she did that to Matt.
Did you have no problem with Aaron? Like, well, he might have been, but like, I don't know. He was all like high horse criticizing Carl when like, bro, he's just following your note.
Yeah, seriously. I'm not crazy about Aaron. I just can't really take Aaron seriously. I just feel like Aaron's sort of like silly for some reason. I don't know what that is. But without giving too much away, he was on the date that I hosted, and he came across like, he's a mid-20s boy. Yeah, I feel like Aaron's gonna hang out with Spencer in San Diego.
Sure, yeah,
and like they'll have fun. And
he
live it up, dude.
Still has some fuck boyness to get out of his system before he settles down, and that's fine. I guess.
We're gonna come back to F Boy Island at the very end. I'm excited about that show. Have you heard about it?
I have. Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned Nikki Glaser, the host of it.
Yeah.
And Elan Gale, the executive producer. Well, we'll just talk about it now. HBO Max has basically a Bachelor in Paradise competitor coming this summer called F-Boy Island, hosted by Nikki Glaser. I think it was created by Elan Gale, who is a longtime EP of The Bachelor, and many people credit him for Bachelor in Paradise being fun. And I can't wait for this show. I'm like legitimately excited.
From my understanding, I could be wrong, is that two producers who are no longer with the show, Elan Gale and Pete Scalishar, right? Essentially, they were the brainchilds behind Paradise, and basically
Pete's a friend of the pod. Pete's been on the pod.
Yeah, well, that's how I know you.
Yes,
right?
Pete connected you and I.
And then between Elan, Pete, and Martin, who's kind of in charge, he's right below Mike.
Martin Hilton.
Those three, but like. I think Elan, to that point, Elan and Peter were on the ground floor, so to speak. And they, it was like, hey, we're going to do a summer show. And they're the ones that basically kind of designed it. So yes, like Elan, for a lot of arguments can be made, is like he created Bachelor in Paradise and now he is competing with it.
And here's the log line for F-Boy Island, which I'm just so excited about. 3 women move to a tropical island where they're joined by 24 men, 12 self-proclaimed nice guys looking for love, and 12 self-proclaimed F-boys there to compete for cold, hard cash. The women will navigate the dating pool together with the hope of finding a lasting love connection. By the finale, all will be revealed. I'm fired up, man. See you on HBO Max this summer. We've got a lot to look forward to.
I believe in Elan's ability to produce a TV show.
Same here. All right, we'll come back to that this summer. Don't you worry. It's going to be a hot back summer. I'm not sure if you heard Bachelor in Paradise and F-Boy Island. I love it. Anyway, back to the dates, or back to the show. So winner of the rose on the group date, Andrew S., which was great. Andrew S. seems to have an infectious energy. He seems very fun.
He's in my top 4 for sure.
I just want to note, it's been pointed out to me, he is cousins with Clay Harbor.
I thought I saw that somewhere this week. Yeah.
Yes. Many people DM me to say so. So thank you for all of the feedback, people.
I mean, I have a lot of different, they seem like very different personalities.
So different. Clay is like, seems so much like more demure compared to Andrew.
Demure,
like,
kind of robotic, a little like.
And like Andrew's so like effervescent and just like fun. He just seems like he'd be a great person to hang out with in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like he goes far because this is the theory I've had, that like when you are the lead, like you need to keep someone around who's just like easy to be around, like relaxing. And so he seems like it could be him.
I mean, everyone but your winner.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's great. And the way he spoke about his mom was really sweet. I mean, I'm all in on Andrew S. He seems like a great guy.
I agree. Yeah. I have him in my top 4. Yeah.
Andrew S. I'm following him on Instagram now, currently in Europe. So he's not in paradise. So that also adds, I think, credence to that he might go far.
Yeah. Yeah.
This Instagram's a real problem for paradise because you just can tell who's there and who's not. This
Is
Instagram, I sound like
care?
I'm like 70.
I don't
really.
even know why there's like, is there a reveal anymore? Who gives a shit? I'm surprised they don't do, it's a different world. I don't get, from a marketing standpoint, I like ABC and Warner Brothers, if you're listening, like, why don't you leverage social media and the celebrities that you create on the show to promote your show rather than like have it be some sort of secret? I don't get it. It's not, whatever, but they have the world runs on social media, and yet they seem to want to not
that
use
would be
it.
Forward thinking, Nick, and I don't know. We've taken slow steps forward here on this show, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that could be done to emulate a Love Island or Big Brother kind of feel of like 5 days a week content behind the scenes. Like, there's just so much more. There's obviously so much more they could be doing. There's no question about it.
Agreed.
Maybe one day. So Andrew got the rose, and then we get to we don't even get a final rose ceremony because Carl derails everything. And I don't like when they add an episode without a rose ceremony.
Oh,
just
well,
keep it clean.
Well, prepare to be disappointed.
Great.
May I say that you should change your perspective? Listen, the reason why that happens, if it ever happens, is because they have too much content and it's good content and they want to use it. And at the risk of an episode bleeding over into next week, that's why they do it, right? That's the only reason. It's because it's like there was a fight, a petty fight, a stupid fight, but a fight nonetheless that allowed us to hate someone like Carl, and hating someone is good on that show. And my guess is like, I think you're going to, with Blake showing up, there's going to be a lot.
I forgot about Blake. We haven't even seen him.
Yeah. There's a lot of drama they're going to have to unpack and be prepared for that to happen, which is, again, it's a good thing. People say they hate it, but trust me, the alternative is a very boring,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Carl sucks. There's not even much to say. I mean, he just really blows. I hope he leaves soon.
Right off the bat, anyone who, life coach, motivational speaker, I know some really good ones out there. I've had a couple on my podcast, but a lot of it is I'm a skeptic. You're gonna have to, you tell me you're an accountant, I'll be like, cool. A lawyer.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Need your help.
Yeah. If someone tells me they're a motivational speaker, I'm like, I don't know. You're gonna have to really prove to me that
I
you
agree. The movie Little Miss Sunshine didn't do much to help the profession of motivational speaking, but
Great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie. I feel like it's sort of had the same visual palette as Katie's date with Greg, unfortunately. So that's sort of those browns and yellows. Oh God. And so next week we'll have to see what happens. And then, when's Blake going to show up? I totally forgot about that. Thank you for the reminder. I guess we don't even see him in scenes for next week, so who knows?
He was when I met Katie on the date that's next week, he was there.
Oh, okay.
And Katie had told me he was there.
Interesting.
Now,
okay.
The fact that he wasn't in the promo is surprising.
Right.
Because, we've seen seasons where, like, the fence jump, for example, they promoted the fence jump every week, and then it was the last fucking episode. So I do know Blake was there. I do know Katie had talked to him. How they air it and show it, it might bleed over into episode. Blake, I feel confident and saying only solely based off of that information that when I was talking to Katie on the date, it was like it was slowly being incorporated into the show. But he had yet to meet the guys, and Katie had yet to decide if he's going to stay. So I don't really know, but like solely based off of the promo, like they wouldn't have included Blake that much in the season promo if he's not sticking around for a long time. And my prediction is that he'll have essentially the same amount of success I had when I showed up for Caitlyn's season, because the promos were kind of similar. And I think Blake's in her top 4.
So I was going to say, so final 2 then, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I really do. Otherwise, and again, I'm solely basing off of that promo. And
right. And like Heather wasn't in Matt's promos that much.
No, it's just, you could just, there's a feel of like, you know.
Makes an impact.
So.
All right. So who's your 4th? We got Greg. We got Andrew, Blake.
If I'm going to go, Greg's my winner. I'm going to say Blake's the runner-up. And I'm going to say Andrew S 3 and Connor 4.
Cat Guy. Okay. Yeah. Shout out to Cat Guy.
He's easy to talk to. He's fun. He makes her feel comfortable.
Yeah, he seems
all
fun.
These things that bring him along. And I feel like all the hot, tall, strapping guys, while Katie likes making out with them, when push comes to shove, I think it's not her style.
What do you think of Michael, the father?
He just reminds me of like an 80s rom-com. He reminds me of that one.
Like an 80s sitcom. It's like sort of like he's like an older version of Michael P. Keaton or something.
Yeah.
I was checking him out. I like him. He seems like a nice guy.
Sure.
He has a beard now, like IRL. I was looking at his Instagram. It's transformative. He goes from like nice looking average guy to definitively hot. It's honestly one of the best beards I've ever seen. Michael, don't get rid of it. It's really working for you. I was shocked.
Yeah, I could see him being top 6. It's interesting. I always try to like figure out, and I'm completely spoiled free, right?
Me too.
And I have been successful for the past couple of seasons, which is really, really great.
It's hard. Please don't tweet at us with the spoilers. We don't want to know.
Yeah, it was harder before because I knew too many people.
Sure.
And so I would always hear, but now I don't really, the people on the show now I don't have relationships with, right? And so, again, you go back to like, Greg was not supposed to have a date this week, right? Greg was supposed to, like every first impression rose that I can remember doesn't have a date that week, right? It's like you get the first impression rose, there's not enough people to go on dates, you got validated, we'll see how you handle not going on a date, maybe that'll make you a villain, maybe it won't, I don't know. But they needed Greg on this date because we needed to get to know Katie and we needed to hear her story about her dad. Okay, so like who do we not? And what's his name? Dad? What's his name?
Michael
was the odd man out. Well, what that tells me is that she does like Michael, right? And they're not worried about him, and they want to see him panic a little bit and see how he handles it. But he's going to get a one-on-one in the next. That almost guaranteed him a one-on-one.
Interesting. Okay, well, I look forward to it. He seems like a nice guy. Last note of the day, I didn't discuss yet on this podcast the guest hosts for Paradise. We got Titus Burgess. We got David Spade, of course. We got Lance Bass, the Little John. I mean, reminder, Little John's been on the show before. He was on Becca and Blake's date. A great time. Lance Bass, I mean, he's not in the Backstreet Boys, but still love and sync. David Spade, I recently saw him, not recently, like pre-pandemic. I saw him eating at Koi on La Cienega. Seemed like he was having a nice evening, as was I. And Titus Burgess, no opinion on, but I hope he sings. I mean, what do you think?
Whatever. I think it's the whole thing's kind of odd, but whatever. You know, I feel like this is a Mike Fleiss decision.
Well, these are, I think, all FOFs, friends of Fleiss.
Yeah, Paradise doesn't need a host,
right?
You know, and so I think Chris was hosting because Chris was the host of the show. So I think it's, as far as Paradise, it seems like, here's what I don't get. It clearly seems like they're trying to create a buzz. And while these are all talented and wonderful people.
And also shift the buzz away from Chris Harrison towards the future of the show.
I don't know how much buzz it creates. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah, they seem nice. I don't know if they're going to add much value. I don't know if people are going to tune in to see Lance Bass. on Paradise, maybe.
Well, I
don't know.
watched him on Lisa Vanderpump's show, Overserved with Lisa Vanderpump, which is, I think, on Peacock.
Mhm.
Horrible show. Lance was not particularly good, but he'll be better in this. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm fans of all of them individually. I've got to work with David a little bit on his show, and they're all nice guys. It's just more like it's Paradise. You really don't need a host, and B, I mean, listen, I'm biased, but like, you know, next week you'll see a date that I'm on, and you know, you have like, it's cool to see Tayshia and Caitlyn. And that's like, you know, people would debate like, oh, did you like Chris or did you like Caitlyn and Tayshia? Whatever you liked about the creative. Chris is a pro's pro when it comes to the hosting. He knows his beats, and especially in the live stuff, he's a pro. But like, Chris was also never a lead, and he wasn't on the show, right? So naturally, when you ask Caitlyn and Tayshia to have like empathetic, serious conversations about how they're feeling, I assume we're going to get better conversations from Caitlyn and Tayshia. I hope to. And like on the date that I host next week, you know, like there's a lot of tears. And I think part of it led to like my ability to talk to Katie and connect with her, and then, you know, share my experiences, and challenge the guys to be who they truly are. And I think that makes for good TV, as opposed to like, oh, cool, it's David Spade. Like, I'm a huge fan. And then he's like, hey guys, like, you know, I don't know how it'll go. And maybe it just doesn't matter, because I don't think most important takeaway is Paradise doesn't need a host to be successful.
I think in general, I hope that the show moves towards like cultivating this sort of like world that it has, without, you know, in the same way that like The Challenge has a world that like TJ Lavin, while he's a fixture of that show, like if he left, the Challenge universe would still exist. I hope it moves in that direction. No shots at TJ. I love TJ. Anyway.
Yeah, this is not a criticism of anyone going on or whatever.
Exactly.
I think
it's an evolution of the show.
Yeah, programming wise, it has a risk. It actually, I think having like David Spade and Lance Bass and everyone else, it has a risk of being a distraction to the stuff people want to tune in and see.
Yeah, totally.
And I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining me. For more with Nick and more Heather McDonald, check out the Viall Files. I'll be back on Thursday with Callie. We'll be talking. I gotta talk about Katie's dress. She looked very good at the end of the episode. We'll do a style check-in, more odds and ends from Bachelor Nation, and speak to you then. Thank you so much to Corey McConnell for stepping in on this episode of Bachelor Party.